What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And I talked about NeoGAF going down yesterday and talked about that situation. And when I did, I was fairly surprised at the reaction that I got. Some people were pretty glad that I shared what I experienced with that message board and why I didn't like it and that kind of thing. Some people were pretty upset about it. There were a lot of screen caps from Discord where a lot of the mods from that old board were calling me like a piece of shit, and they were calling me a fence setter and stuff like that. And of course, there were people over at, say, Kotaku in Action, which is generally like a Gamergate subreddit. They're calling me a fence sitter and stuff like that. And it always kind of bothers me when I read those comments, specifically because people have this impression that whenever I say stuff that is moderate or neutral here on stream, I do it because I'm trying to please both sides, which is pretty much never the case. Whenever you say something moderate on the internet, you don't please both sides. You actually upset both sides, because something moderate, something, middle of the road, always seems extreme to all extremists. So if I say something moderate about something, or I show both sides of something, I get hate from people on the left and the people on the right. And you definitely see this with other YouTubers who try to do the same thing. Philip DeFranco has talked about this many, many times. Whenever he tries to show an objective point of view, he ends up pissing off both sides of things. So the idea that I would be, quote, a fence sitter or a moderate or anything along that lines in the hopes to please both sides would be an act in vain, and I would have figured that out the first time, or the 5th time, or the 100th time, certainly. It certainly causes way more pain than it is ever worth. I don't like upsetting anybody, but I do know that every time I speak my mind, and I speak my very moderate mind, I'm going to upset a ton of people. It sucks. It sucks, but that's how it works. The reason I communicate in moderate terms and try to show both sides of things is twofold. Number one, and I think this is the most important, is because it's true to myself. I'm not really that invested in a lot of the things I talk about here on YouTube. Sometimes with the gaming stuff, the microtransactions, and sometimes with the personal stuff that's happening to me. But even then, sometimes the personal stuff that's happening to me, it is not a source of outrage. It's not something I'm opinionated about. Most things that I experience in my life are definitely not black and white. They're absolutely shades of gray, and the way that I feel about them is almost always complicated. I always look at the good side and the bad side of things. And this is because I'm like the eternal pessimist and the eternal optimist combined. I always expect the worst, I always plan for the worst, I'm always prepared for the worst, but I always hope for the best, and that's pretty much how I approach everything in my life. And that is a skill that I learned at a very young age because I had parents that were neglectful and directly harmful to me, who damaged me in every possible way, but I had to learn to love them. I had to learn to love these monsters, and if I didn't, I probably would not have been able to survive that. And so that's how I approach everything today. I try to look at every single thing that's happening in the world that I want to talk about on YouTube and talk about how it directly affects me and talk about how it affects me emotionally. And in the general rule, nothing affects me emotionally very much at all. I'm kind of dead inside. I think some of you know that. The second reason I take that approach is because it's just logical. It's just common sense, right? I could try to speak, about only one side and just quote the things that they have to say, and then it'll please that one side while upsetting the other. I could say only the things that the other side cares about and make them happy but upset the other side. But at the end of the day, what's the point of that? When there's this huge swath of people in the middle that are not on either extremes, that are just living their lives, that are just enjoying themselves, they're playing video games on the weekend, they're watching Netflix shows, and they're just enjoying their lives. They're not wrapped up in this stuff. They're not part of outrage culture. They don't really care, and they're just interested in hearing both sides of that thing. And that's obviously the audience that I would like to communicate with because they are most similar to me. But on top of that, I think there are some people that are close to the fringe of either side of things, and those people can be brought closer to the middle. Somebody who's far right or far left, for example, they might be able to be brought towards the moderate middle, the logical middle, the thinking middle, rather than the feeling left or right, and really process everything that's going on and make an educated guess about stuff. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to inform people about every aspect of a thing so that they can make an informed decision, as most moderate people will do. And again, the purpose of that is not necessarily to target the largest audience. It does, and that's very convenient. But the primary reason is to stay true to myself. And for the most part, 98% of the things I talk about here, I'm an impartial observer. And there are periods of time where I do get a little wrapped up. I do get a little frustrated. Maybe a Francis rage will come out for that, or maybe the Francis rage will be mocking the thing that the people that feel differently than me sometimes. Sometimes I will make an opinion piece and really rant the way I did a little bit about the NeoGAF thing yesterday. But for the most part, I am an impartial observer, and it's easier for me to talk about this stuff because I just don't really feel that involved in 98% of the stuff that we talk about on the internet. I'm involved in my marriage. I'm involved in my work here. I'm involved with my dog Sammy, but I don't really care about what Trump tweets or what's getting posted on the message board or that kind of thing, what the hashtag of the day is or which celebrity's banging who. It doesn't affect me, so I'm an impartial observer. That's how I feel. Now, if you don't feel that way, that's fine. If this is all, part of your identity and you have to tweet about it 24 hours a day, that's okay. I'm not judging you. I'm just saying I'm different. And sometimes I may come across as a little disingenuous because I will pick a side on a thing. But if you notice, whenever I pick a side on the thing, I still pretty much always show both sides of the thing. For example, if half the world believes water is wet and half the world believes water is dry, I will try to explain why people think water is wet and why they think it's dry. And then I'll explain to them why it's fucking wet and why I obviously know that. I will try to present it in that way so that people can be informed and they can understand why I feel the way that I feel and why I got wrapped up in this latest thing or whatever it is. And I will admit there have been some cases not too long ago where I was afraid to offer my opinion or offer my particular personal feelings on stuff. And that was when my career was just budding and there were people in the industry who were threatening to see me destroyed and to see me taken down. And yeah, I did let those people keep me from sharing my opinion, never sharing both sides of a thing, but keep me from sharing my opinion after that. It's one of my biggest regrets, and it's something I try to avoid doing now. If I do care about something, I'm definitely going to talk about it, and that's how it's been for the past couple years. Now, here's the thing. I'm not saying that there's nothing I stand for, nothing I believe in, and nothing I won't stand up for. There's quite a few things I genuinely do care about, and you will see that stuff show up here on the channel quite often from time to time. I do really care about video games and the industry itself and the people that work in it, and I do care about the people who play those games as well. And so I am always a consumer advocate, excited to make sure the industry is on the up and up and make sure that the consumer is being treated fairly. I'm a huge fan of freedom of expression and freedom of speech. It's something I've always lived to believe in, and I don't necessarily mean like freedom of expression here on YouTube because this is a private corporation. They can do whatever the hell they want and determine what message they want to have here. But when it comes to the U.S. government, I don't think they should be able to stop almost any type of speech unless that speech is directly harmful, shouting fire in a crowded theater, for example. But up to that point, I think it's okay. And even unpopular speech, I think, should be protected. Going back to some of the comedians I grew up with, like Richard Pryor and Dennis Leary and Sam Kinison and George Carlin saying all of these very unpopular and offensive things, I think it's okay to do that stuff from time to time. Unfortunately, it's also okay if YouTube doesn't want to monetize that, so we have to adapt. I do truly believe that all people are created equal, and regardless of the differences that we have or how people are different from you, they are just as important and as valid as you, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identification or color of skin or things along that lines. I think that my brain is just as valid as your brain, regardless of your situation. I'm not a big fan of how some people use that. I do feel like a lot of people use and abuse that ability. And I think maybe it's not true if you're a prick. You shouldn't be a bad person. You shouldn't be an asshole. Then you're probably on my shit list and you're not going to get treated equal anymore. But pretty much up to that point, that's fine. I'm going to treat you just like anybody else. And even the worst of us are redeemable. I believe that. So even when somebody does something just disgusting and awful, I will hope for the best for that person. I will even maybe try to help them get better and get the help they need to get better. That's something I've always believed in. I believe in even the worst of us can be redeemed. And I do believe in staying true to myself. I think it's very important to stay to my character, stay to the person I am. And even though a lot of people get frustrated with that, they're frustrated by how moderate I am or even sometimes centrist I can be or what offenses or center I can be, I feel that even if there are a lot of people out there who are very upset with me, there's plenty of people still listening and still interested in what I have to say and still learning from it. And that helps me sleep at night. But it also helps me sleep at night to know that I'm true to myself and I'm doing what I feel is best and what I feel is right. And more importantly, what I feel is going on inside here and here. And if anybody has a problem with that, then they just have a problem with me. And there's plenty of people who will tell you what you want to hear instead on YouTube. Just go find them. But if instead you're hoping to find somebody who is more neutral and more moderate and wants to show both sides of a thing so that we can all make informed decisions, then you're at the right place, and I welcome you to have you here. I know a lot of people are frustrated with that, and I understand why. Pick a side, Boogie. Even if it's not my side, pick the other side so I know whether or not to love or hate you. Well, love or hate me, it's up to you, but I've picked my side. And that side is me, my side, which is a fairly popular side because it's filled with a lot of logical thinking moderates. I think I'm in good company. But that's not to say that there aren't plenty of extremists who watch my content, because I held a poll here just recently asking, who voted for who in this latest American election. About 25% of you said you didn't vote or you couldn't vote. A lot of you guys are from overseas, but for those of you who were here, about 40% of what was left voted for Hillary Clinton. About 40% of what was left voted for Donald Trump. And that was a pretty even split, and it was fairly close to how the country voted. And that says to me that I'm doing my job right, because I'm attracting people from both sides of the thing. Probably not the farthest extremes, but somewhere on a quarter left or quarter right. And I feel like that means I'm doing the job that I want to do, the job that I feel like I should do. And I'd love to know if you guys think I'm doing a good job or not. So, as always, guys, this is one man's opinion. I could be wrong. I hope I'm not. I feel like I'm not. I'm happy with the job I'm doing, and I hope you guys are as well. Let me know in the comments section below. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. I love you very much, and I'll speak with you again soon. But I'm never going to be all upset about the latest outrage of the day, the latest trending Twitter hashtag. I'm never going to be upset about who said what, who tweeted what. Oh, who's the new offensive boy? Who's the new offensive boy? Who said the new stupid thing? I don't know. I don't care. But I'll probably show both sides of it when I have to talk about it.